and welcome to today's webcast, Drive Insights into Your Business Processes. Before we begin, I'm going to play a brief housekeeping video.
Welcome, and thank you for viewing our webcast series. Before we begin, please keep the following in mind. You can customize how you view our presentation and interact with the presenter. For better viewing, close all other applications and turn up your speaker volume. You can adjust window size and placement or enter full screen mode using the controls at the top right of the window or dragging the bottom right-hand corner to resize. At the bottom of your screen, you'll see a series of icons that relate to a different aspect of our session. You can download a PDF of today's slides from the Slide Deck and Handouts widget. You can ask questions by typing in the Q&A window and clicking Submit. We'll do our best to answer all questions or follow up via email. If you experience technical difficulty, refresh your browser by hitting the F5 key. This presentation is not legal, investment, or accounting advice. We encourage you to seek the counsel of a professional service provider to apply this content to your specific circumstances.
I'm pleased to introduce today's presenters from Moss Adams, Loren Den-Herder, Managing Director, and Fike, Senior Manager. Loren is a firm leader of business intelligence and corporate performance management. He helps businesses improve their processes, become more efficient, and make better decisions. KC is a Senior Manager in our Enterprise Systems Consulting practice and holds DOMO professional and technical certifications and is a Certified Data Management Professional. With that, I will turn it over to Loren to get us started.
Very good. Thank you, Chad, and thank you, everybody, for joining today as we talk about business value in your data. What we want to go through here is talking about integrating your information together across your business and really do that from a business value perspective. And then we'll talk about how to go through some approaches to gain those insights from the information and then tying it all together at the end by driving business value and some conclusion and wrapping comments around that. But before we get started, what we really want to do is understand a little more about our audience here so we can kind of tailor a bit of what we are going to go through. And what we want to ask you for is just which of the following areas do you find most challenging due to lack of information, maybe even lack of access to good information. So what's listed here is some business areas. And the reason we don't have kind of an all the above here is because we find it's really helpful to take an incremental approach to addressing these areas. And we find that as we pull together information for the highest priority one, tends to be a bit cumulative, and things that are used on one will then help the other. You can incrementally get to a much better spot in terms of usage of your data. And I think, KC, you see some of that same thing with your clients as well.
Kind of just all over, right? And again, we'll talk through this, but it's just incremental. Cannot emphasize that enough.
Yeah, so in that incremental process, why don't we just take a look here? So this is very common to what we see is it's often a close tie between budgeting and forecasting and just getting data together in the first place. And when we are just getting data together and getting it clean in the first place, usually that means just looking at what the data is there and then right away saying, are those results in line with what we would expect? And of course, that drives to budgeting and forecasting. So with that, how about if we just dive right in here and begin talking about, what are the benefits and then, some of the challenges of integrating information together. We like to use a model that kind of guides this conversation here. And is one that really talks about high-performing organizations. What do they do, and how do they use data that makes them high-performing? At the very top on the title there there's a really important concept that we really align ourselves around, and that's this concept of embedding information in the business process. And if we just back up a little on that, what we find is if we're using the word data analytics or starting the sentence with the words data analytics, we're kind of both confused from the very start. And that's because it's such a big subject and it doesn't really give a clear definition of what we're talking about. But if you talk about it from a business process perspective and you're working to inform a particular business process, that adds a lot of clarity to what is the kind of information that would help that business process and what are the different processes that would be informative around bringing that data to a point that it gives you good insights. So with that in mind, a business process can be anything from a frontline delivery to a client to the boardroom and everything in between. All of it needs information. It's really great if you can have that in a very timely way. And what this model does here is just shows that there are really 4 components to tying this together in a really high-performing way. The one, have a plan. What is the desired way that the business would move forward? Can also think about that. What is the safe way that the business can move forward? And then once you have that, then it will progress through time. And of course, you'll collect those results in the form of how did the business actually perform. When you're looking at numbers that are coming out of your business systems, a number is a number, as you could say. What makes it meaningful is comparing it to, well, what was the plan in the first place? Is this a good revenue number? Is this a great revenue number? Is this what we planned? Are we ahead of plan? And just in that sentence right there, you're hearing the people side of this creep into it. People side is, of course, just vitally important here, that from the person's perspective, they're needing both the plan and the performance and those two things together to see that. And when you're planning, you need to absolutely make sure people are at the center of that so that you are looking to see how would the performance go. Now, all of that's tied together with that 4th comment there in the circle that says it has to be communicated. And the communication of all of this is what is so key. And that communication is driven by data. So as is pointed out here, data is the link, or information is the link that ties it all together. So there's the common things that we see to build up that communication is spreadsheets. So everybody uses a lot of spreadsheets. And while they're powerful in their 2-dimensional way, they just create a lot of friction around all the things that we know. Where is it located? What's the latest version? The list goes on. And so that just means if you have to spend a lot of time to pull that together, then the timeliness of your insights, the ability to drive the business process and to help everybody on the team be on the same page just becomes much more difficult. So yeah, this model here is just really helpful in understanding that there are many facets to it, and by working with them and tying the communication together, that there's a lot of benefits across the entire organization. Now, there are many challenges, of course, to making that all work. But what I want to focus on here is just this sentence or headline where it's talking about being able to quickly make decisions, and the timeliness is what's so important in achieving business value. Can you capture opportunity as it's happening and have the whole organization move along quickly so you're aligned and really on your A game kind of throughout the organization as you're doing that? And this kind of speaks to the agile part of this. Another word we use for that is to be nimble. And to be nimble across your organization because you're all so heavily informed in what is relevant to your piece, informing your business processes with relevant information that helps you understand what is there, and then what are the actions we can take. In fact, there's this model we like to use around this where you can have data, but then data needs to lead to insights. When you have insights, then that guides what your actions are. Those actions drive business value. When you've created business value, then you can realize that business value with the actions that you take. And so as you kind of walk through that process, you don't want a lot of friction in the process. You want that to be automated so that it's not time consuming. So you don't have a lot of resources tied up in just making that happen, but it's something that's built into the overall systems and the ways of operating. Another way to look at this is there's this concept of information having a shelf life. So if you were to know something right now about what your customer base is doing, that's way more valuable than learning about that 2-3 months from now. You can actually take action on that. And so if there's a lot of friction in the system around how you get data pulled together, and then let's use the spreadsheet example here. So if you're taking your actual data, you're putting it together with your plan data, and that takes a lot of effort, you won't do that like every day of the week. Instead, what you'll do is you'll wait till a period a month is done. You'll go through that effort. If you're really on your game, you're going to find that that takes a week or so. Then you divide it up departmentally and you get it published out to people. You're now at a week and a half or maybe 2 weeks. Then they have the information to make their decisions, or what they might be doing is just checking their gut feel that they used when they could make those decisions in the decision-making window. Problem with that is the month is done, you can't change the results, and you're already significantly into the next period, so you're limiting that time. If you back that up and you have information that's automated, then you're making decisions in an informed way inside the decision-making window, and it gives you a chance to really stay on track and to make a difference before the period ends and affect how that goes. That's what a really nimble, agile business will look like. So it's about changing that question. There's significant business value in changing the question from what happened to what is happening. And if you think about that from a management perspective, if you ask that different question to your management team, what is happening, that is a much more engaged question. And you'll have a much more engaged management team. And that is what really drives business value. So there's just a whole lot that can be said for when you automate, you change the question, and right there is where the business value, the value proposition is at. Now, there's a lot of reasons for the, to describe the effort, and Casey will kind of take us through, what are this effort, and then what's an approach that we take to that.
Great. Thanks, Loren. I appreciate it. Like, good insight and a lot of common things we'll be talking about throughout the rest of this presentation. But that first bullet, information's everywhere, and the volume is just, call it frightening, right? I think, there's a ton of material out there on just the growth of data, of information, whether it's your existing systems, other systems we're pulling data from. I think the tool that we're really stuck with is really just the spreadsheet, right? So it's a challenge, as you were mentioning earlier, Loren, to pull in gigs and gigs of data into a single Excel file and then try to do a VLOOKUP or a pivot. That is timely and that's rife with error, and that's what a lot of people are dealing with. The second piece is building the business case, and I kind of tie this in with those last two bullets as well on where to begin. We're not sure where to begin or how to build organizational interest. It's understanding, again, to the point you brought up earlier, Loren, I really liked it, where we're not talking data analytics. We're trying to understand how can organizations get information into their business processes, right? And it's kind of like where to begin. What's the most high value? Where are we struggling the most with? The third one there, the cost seems out of reach. I think it's, if we're trying to get smarter about information, get that into our business processes, drive business value. I think a lot of companies probably start with, I need to go out and I need to buy a data warehouse, or I need to buy this dashboard platform or something along those lines. And we kind of caution against that, right? And I think a lot of the solutions that we work with are more cost effective. And to that fourth bullet, which kind of ties in here, is I might not have a deep IT team on my staff. We might be a small organization. We might just have a help desk person or somebody that's a network admin. Again, solutions that we work with and the solutions that are out there, there's opportunities where organizations that might not have that fully baked IT team or a data engineering team, if you will, provide them the ability to, again, get information into their business processes, which kind of parlays into our approach to integrating information and driving insight. So how we kind of think about this is, let's start at the top. Let's start with your business processes. Let's understand, how do we become more high performing by using information, right? And how do we align with our exec team, key stakeholders? Where do they want the organization to go? What are those organizational goals that we're trying to achieve, and how are we measuring? And then how are we understanding how we're performing against those goals? The next piece is kind of talking about the first one, is where are you as an organization? Every organization, everybody listening on the call today, they're in a different spot within their data journey, right? So I think for us, it's really working with our clients and understanding, where are you? It might be, we have nothing. We have no technology, no staff. We are just at the proverbial square one. Again, that's something that we can work with and have worked with. Whereas somebody that might be a bit more mature and is just trying to gain additional insights and wanting to understand how to do that. The next piece kind of, again, ties into the second one, common thread here, but what are those solutions and services that can help us extend, right? What are those tools? What is that kind of data aggregation, information aggregation tool and process that we could utilize to then insert that information into our business processes? How do we keep, one of the things from the Q&A early on was just wrangling data, keeping data clean. I have dirty data. I'm sure there's a handful of people, and I'm not going to ask for a raise of hands, but there's a handful of people, at least on this call, that struggle with it. We saw that. How do we automate that process to get you a clean set of data in a timely manner so that you can then drive insight off of? I think that's kind of sections 3 and 4 here within this slide, but it's, taking the manual piece out of it, which I'll talk about more on in the next slide, but keep the manual piece out of it, find ways to automate that data collection, data cleaning, and then an analysis. So you can then spend more time on your analysis. And then the last piece here is, now that we have kind of a clean set of data, how are we visualizing that data? Is it spreadsheet? Is it a report? What is that medium? And then how do we feed that back into the business process so that our frontline workers can take action and adjust our business, if they're capable of, to then put us in a better position? So I talked about this on the previous slide, but this is kind of what we're seeing at a lot of our clients, right? I think that, I'll now start at the bottom there on the left, spending most of our time logging into multiple systems, downloading data into Excel files, CSV, text, whatever that may be, then cleaning that data before we can actually put it together in a report, which is more manual time in that reporting and control piece. And then we're spending the smallest amount of time analyzing that data, sharing that data with our team, and then taking action on that data. The clients that we work with, we flip that, right? So we spend more time analyzing, taking action, spend less time on that manual data prep and aggregation and prep, on just grabbing it all, again, automating it, so you can take more actionable insight. So I think kind of touched on these in the past couple slides, but this is how we work with our clients, right? It's Loren talked about this quite a bit in, the data analytics piece. He was spot on, but we work with our clients. We start with your business, with those key stakeholders, the executive team, whoever that might be. Let's understand your business. Where are your organizational goals? How are we going to get there, right? So understanding all those key where we want to go before we even start talking about tools, techniques, whatever that may be. And then the next kind of section and piece is we'll step in and understand where are we from an information data ready place today. Do we have any sort of, technology? Are we using a data warehouse? How are we sharing information? Is it all on a SharePoint site? Is there a better medium that we could help the teams out and provide that information within your business processes to drive value? And then it's taking even a further dive to understand, like, what are those use cases based on what we're hearing? Where could we either add technology, use your existing technology, but provide more readily available information into your business processes, and then define processes on how to share that information with your team if it's not already there. And then lastly, it's, again, if there's gaps or things that the team could add, it's providing those recommendations based on our findings. So based on this discussion, it's kind of like where we really get to this. I think the big piece in what we start with is, from a strategic perspective, how do we align, right? What are your organizational goals? How do we get there, whether that's in the addition of technology, additional tools, different ways of processing information, sharing information, but how do we help your organization become a little more data savvy, if you will, by providing better insight? Again, that drives into better understanding of how your organization, taking on what we've shared, how do we provide a better learning and a better process that you can then take and apply to different areas within your business? And then lastly, if we're lacking in technology, what's that technology roadmap look like to help our organization become more information aware, more efficient, more agile, driving those insights, which leads to business value? That said, Loren, I'll pass it back to you.
Very good. Thank you for that, Casey. Yeah, that's hopefully it gives you a bit of an insight on a very structured approach that we use to, one, just align first and foremost with the business strategy and business priorities, and then align that with value so that we're always working on the things that are deriving value from your data. So just talking again about driving that value, let's just put even a little more definition around what does that mean? And there's this virtuous cycle that we like to talk about that really illustrates, what does it mean when you're an agile, nimble organization, and what does it mean when you've really achieved that business value from your information? And it starts on the left there, where as individuals, you can be very responsive. So if that information is embedded in your business process, and as you're executing your part of the business, then you're being responsive because you now have the latest and greatest right there in front of you. You have a very guided way of going about this. You're taking that data and insights, now you're at the action standpoint, and you can respond to what that is and drive value. As you're doing that, what that means is you're adapting to the business environment at hand. As it's happening, you're adapting to that. So it makes you a very fluid, adaptable, nimble organization. But it's very likely you're doing that in collaboration with somebody else. Nobody's really working as an island inside of the business, but what you're doing is as you do your piece, you're reaching around to your managers, or reaching around to the departments around them, other managers around them, so becoming collaborative because they're informed as well. As that's happening, that means that because you're informed, you're working in a collaborative way, you're building up your teams, you're then just naturally empowered to make those decisions and be very nimble in the business. When your employees and your managers are that empowered, you're then in control. And that whole definition there of this virtuous cycle of using your information not only makes you a nimble, agile type of a business, but that really is the business value. And so that is taking, data and information that is valuable and not making it a capability, but making data an asset. So I wanted to circle back around through this slide right here again and just get back to the structure that we use for high-performing organizations and just highlight again that all that information that you have, all that data that you have worked in the right way, in a way that's automated and timely and driving particular information into a business process that turns that data into a real asset. There's this concept of monetizing your data out there. And often when that term is used, it's thought of, well, I'm selling a data set. I'm doing, kind of outside the organization. There's a whole set of monetization that can happen inside the business. So it's a way of deriving business value so that through efficiencies and the like, you're getting such deep business value from that you're monetizing the information that you're collecting on just a routine basis as you execute your business. So just to kind of wrap up and summarize what we've gone through here, bit of a conclusion. And this is really just saying, take the business process and understand from business process perspective, where is information lacking? Or put a different way, if you were to better inform a particular business process, would that move along in a more agile, nimble way that would help in customer engagement, delighting your employees and your customers and how the business is moving forward and how they're able to be really responsive and work collaboratively around that. Another thing is just, focus your time and analysis, not on just the mechanics of working with data, but automate that piece so there's no friction, it's very fluid, and you're now focused on what are those results? What is that common set of information that we can all look at and not talk about how to get the information, but talk about what do we do about the information that we have at hand. When you're informing those business processes, there's a lot of data that organizations have. The trick here is to kind of single out what is interesting from what is really informative or actionable. So that's this third bullet of keep the K in KPI. There's the things that are just kind of muddying the waters. Sometimes it's better just to put them on a separate dashboard, a separate place. But when you're informing the business process, really focus on what is the thing that'll help that decision-making process and derive value from the data itself. And then when you're focusing on the information embedded in the business process is really about availability. Is it naturally in a place that falls in line with where I go to do my day-to-day duties? When it's there and it's very visible and you can talk about it and the teams are looking at the same data, that gives it credibility because either it's correct and you've kind of proven it over time, or if there's some problem with it, if everybody sees it, that'll become part of the conversation. You can work with that and then build that credibility in, and that feedback loop is just super valuable. And then there are, as Casey was pointing out, a whole set of cost-effective solutions that are out there that can match your organization, your data stack, the way that you operate, your industry, and really be able to do this thing that we're talking about as informing your business processes. And then when you're looking to see, what are these capabilities, is driving that conversation inside of your organization goes a long ways to prioritizing what should we be doing, where's the high value add, and then success will breed success. So we can guide you through that journey there. That's what Casey and I do on a regular basis. So hopefully this was informative. We would be happy to start a conversation, and I just want to thank you very much for your time today.
Thank you, Loren and Casey, for a great presentation today. If we didn't have time to answer your questions, we'll do our best to follow up with you after the webcast. Here's a link to an online survey where you can provide feedback for today's presentation. Please take a moment to complete this survey, as your feedback is very important to us. Thank you again for joining us. We'll hope you join us again next time.